They are side by side. Al Jr. down on the low side. He's got the position. He gets by Scott Goodyear. It may not be enough, but at least Al Jr. now holds second position in this race. Scott Goodyear tucked right in behind Unser Jr. He's waiting. He's waiting about a car length and a half behind Al Jr. Al Jr. now lengthens it out. He's trying to hold him off. Goodyear low. Jr. high. They go to 4. Bob Laney.
Unser Jr. has the lead. One more turn to go. Here they come. Coming to the finish line. Bob Jenkins. Who's going to win it?
The checkered flag is out. Goodyear makes a move. Little Al wins by just a few tenths of a second. Perhaps the closest finish in the history of the Indianapolis 500. Al Unser Jr. has become the first second-generation driver to win an Indianapolis 500. The checkered flag waves, and Al Unser Jr. has won the 78th running of the Indianapolis 500. Al Unser Jr. becomes a two-time winner of the Speed Classic on Memorial Day weekend in Indianapolis, Indiana.
And that second win for Al Unser Jr. happened to be on the birthday of his father in what I think might be the most famous, certainly one of them, race cars ever to run here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It is always an honor to bring on Al Unser Jr., who has been so gracious with his time with a number of occasions on this program, as a matter of fact. But what is a trip to Indianapolis Motor Speedway without running into Little Al? Once again, great to see you, man.
Thanks for having us on.
Let's begin with this. I want to ask you about a couple of different things here. But one of them that I think is really cool is this. Several years ago, and I've probably told you this story, but I used to work at a cigar store like a million years ago.
Okay.
And I'm working at the cigar store in Broadway one night, and I'm locking up the door, and I look down, and it's like a random October night. And I see this guy walking towards me, 10 o'clock at night, in a cowboy hat. And then I thought, that looks like Willy T Ribbs. and I say out loud, well, that's Willy T Ribbs. And Willy T Ribbs stops and says to me, we've never met, and he says, hey, do you know how I can get a cab to the airport? And I said, well, I can give you a ride to the airport. So I gave Willy T Ribbs a ride to the airport. I'm thrilled because I grew up in Indy, and he's the first, a historical guy, right?
Right.
And we exchanged numbers pre-cell phone days, and Willy T Ribbs, since that day, Al Unser Jr., has treated me as if I grew up with him. Right?
Nice.
He is literally like the definition of friendship loyalty. And I don't know that I knew of the as Kyle Larson, by the way, just had the first incident. You can tell the eye of Al Unser Jr.
Is that a replay from the test?
That might be a replay, actually, from that is. You're right.
Okay.
That gets us every time, by the way. That gets us every time.
There he is. He all is good.
He's all is good for Kyle Larson, right? Although he got out, so it looked like all is good. But anyway, so you have had a really special and long-standing friendship with Willy T Ribbs that I don't know that a lot of people really fully grasped. You guys are about to put that all together, and I want to talk about that. But take me through how it is that you became friends with Willy T and how your friendship is special to you today.
Well, our first race together was 1982, and it was at the Long Beach Grand Prix. We were driving Formula Atlantic cars is what we were doing. And so Willy was in that race. And then we later on hooked up, I think it was 83 that we drove for Dan Gurney in Toyotas at the 24 Hours of Daytona, and he was one of the teammates. I mean, it was a big team. There was 4 or 5 cars that we were running for Dan, and Willy was on that team. And simply put, we just remained friends from the first time we actually met each other, and we just stayed friends, kind of the same way it was with you.
Right. I mean, you meet the guy and instantly you feel like you've grown up with him, right?
He's a great guy. Yeah,
now, what's interesting to me about it is I think to IndyCar fans, they would look at Al Unser Jr. and Willy T Ribbs. And because of the fact that Willy, by the time he got here and qualified in 91, a little late in the game in terms of his career, he was not with a great funded team.
Correct.
And then he returns in 93 and makes another run at it. But that was at a time when you were at the zenith of the game, right? And so I think a lot of people would be surprised that you guys even crossed paths. How much, I guess, did he maybe lean on you, or maybe even for you, how much did you further appreciate the opportunities you had by seeing some of the struggles that he had?
Yeah, well, Willy always came to the motorhome after practice or whatever and would ask me questions about what's going on out there and for practice, and of course I did everything I could to try to help him, and I hoped we helped him get in the show and that sort of thing, and he's just a great person, and I'm proud to call him my friend.
And I think a lot of people, at least out here, I think people know this now because, Uppity, which was a documentary made about him, which was fabulous, right?
Yep.
The guy was a hell of a race car driver.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people maybe don't lose sight of that because it wasn't an Indy car per se.
Heck of a Trans Am driver is what he was. And he drove those cars like there was no tomorrow. It was really good. And then, Willy, he's a showman without a doubt. And so with this thing that we got coming up, this Pit Lane Unfiltered, it's going to be fun working with him. And we've kind of put this deal together the last couple of years. We've talked about this, and so the opportunity has finally come for us to do this, and the stories that we've got to tell are just immense.
So this gets underway, if I'm not mistaken. You're going to have kind of a kickoff to this on May 20th here at the museum, correct?
May 20th at the museum.
And they're going to follow you guys around. Take me through this Pit Lane Unfiltered with Unser Jr. and Willy T Ribbs. They're going to kind of follow you guys around and just kind of tell the story behind the story, right?
Correct. What we're going to be interviewing some drivers. We're going to be interviewing some owners, and just telling the stories that we grew up with the Indy 500 and that sort of thing. And so, we're gonna do what we can to just tell the story unfiltered. Okay,
right.
and that's what Willy T Ribbs is. Unfiltered,
he is, man.
Okay. I mean,
no
he
question.
is, and so I'm there to try to keep Willy on track.
Here's the thing. I'm
going to say try.
Right.
Try. I'm going to try.
Willy T Ribbs was just inducted into a Hall of Fame recently.
Trans Am.
And he turned the acceptance speech into a story about his colonoscopy. So you've got your work cut out for you, right?
Oh, yeah.
But that's classic Willy T Ribbs, right?
When the two of us get together, and we've done some interviews together, and there are no holds barred. I mean, Willy will take it some direction, and the one word he calls me that he says I say a lot is easy, Willy.
That's right.
So,
slow it down.
So we'll
right?
see. We'll see. I mean, like I said, we've been talking about it for several years, and the opportunity has finally come to where we're going to do this, and we're going to have fun with it. We're going to just totally. It's not going to be a scripted thing. There's going to be some script to it, okay?
You guys can't have a script.
But
you can't have a script,
but
right?
It is going to be unscripted and unfiltered.
Okay, so Unser Jr., my guest here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This morning I learned something that I found interesting, and I don't know. There would be very, very few things about this place that I could throw in that you don't know, okay? But this may be one of them.
Okay.
When Dario Franchitti won his first Indy 500 in 2007, he gets out of the car, and Kevin Lee, who was my colleague on the radio network at the time, was interviewing him, and the first thing Dario said was, "I understand now." And so I asked him, I said, "I've always heard that quote, and I've always wanted to know, tell me exactly what it is that you finally understood." And he said, "When I got out of the car, I realized that forever I heard the clip of Unser Jr. saying, 'You just don't know what Indy means.'" Mm-hmm. And he said, "I always kind of snickered at that because I'm a race car driver and it's a race." And he said, "But then I won it. Uh-huh. And the first thing I heard when I got out of the car was Unser Jr. saying, 'You just don't know what Indy means.' And he said, and the first thing I thought was, I understand now."
Right.
And he got it.
Right.
Do you still, Unser Jr., when you walk through these gates and you come into this place, even on days when there's nobody here, do you still understand? Do you still know what it means?
Absolutely, we understand. And, I had a friend of mine ask me that just this morning, okay? And his name's Scooter, and he asked me, he goes, "When you go under that tunnel, do you get teary-eyed?" And the answer to that question is I used to. Before I won the race, I used to, and it was not coming through the gates, but after qualifying, when I'd qualify for the 500 prior to winning it in '92, when qualifying was over and I'm going down the backstretch, I would just, I all of a sudden, I'd get really emotional. And I think a lot of that was the stress from qualifying. You're trying to get it in the show, and then it's a 4-lap run, which is a long run, and that kind of thing. And then when I won it in 92 and I came back in 93 and qualified, I was expecting the emotional tears to happen to me after qualifying, and it really surprised me because it didn't happen. And that was the first time since I was a rookie, because I cried every year, and until I won it. And he looked at me, Scooter, goes, well, you slayed the dragon, is what he said. Is
there an element of that, though?
There could be, I don't know, but this place is emotional no matter when you come. The love for this place is immense, and the biggest challenge that we had as drivers and team is keeping our head on straight, okay? Not letting the little details, the little intricacies of the day not take us down a rabbit hole that we couldn't get out of. And that is so hard because this place means so much.
Well, did you ever find, there was such a foregone conclusion in the career of Unser Jr. that you would win Indy because of your uncle and your father, right? And you have so many near misses. I mean, 89 obviously is the first one that comes to mind, but was there ever a time where you thought to yourself, it's just not in the cards for me?
Yeah, after 89, for sure.
Yeah, you're that close, right?
Because we did everything right. The team, perfect strategy. I drove a perfect race. I mean, we were so well prepared for that race, and then, it was a God thing that we came up short. We did everything right. And so I just went, wow, what happened to me after 89 was Monday morning I woke up and I went, I was relaxed, I was calm. I just said to myself, no matter what, the fans knew who won that race yesterday. I didn't drink the milk. I didn't get the money. I didn't get the trophy and we didn't go to victory lane. But, and that just put a calmness on me and a relaxation. When I came back in 90, it was totally different. We just need to go out and just execute now, okay, and just hope that that it comes to us, and then 90, 91, happens, and we don't have the car. We were making mistakes as a team, and that sort of thing. And I got to thinking, well, just call me Lloyd Ruby is what I said to my first wife. You just call me Lloyd Ruby,
guy, right?
who had several opportunities to win and then didn't. And I started to believe that. And as a matter of fact, even race day morning of 92, I wake up, I was praying for a hot day. I go out, it's the coldest day in the history of the 500.
Yeah, that's right.
I've qualified
crashes
12.
You can't get in a rhythm, right?
I mean, everything. And I just went, we're just going to go and get points today because I didn't have the car that was fast enough to go and run with the Lolas.
Right.
Okay.
And Michael Andretti did.
He did, and he was gone. And so, that I was convinced that I was not going to win that race.
And what do they always say about the Speedway? And I know it's a cliche. This is a track that chooses her winner, right?
That's right.
And in '89, you go into turn 3, and she chose Emerson Fittipaldi, and then 3 years later, it's your turn, right?
I was proven that point, because I grew up watching Dad and Uncle Bobby run the 500. The 500 has been my life,
right?
Since I started racing go-karts, right? And in 1985, when I watched Danny Sullivan spin and then come back and win, I knew right then it was God comes down and decides who the winner is, not anything else.
Right.
Because back in that day, you spin, you're going to hit the fence. There's no two ways about it. You spin out, you're going to hit the fence, and Danny didn't.
You know what's funny, Al? Danny Sullivan, who obviously you know really well.
Yep.
I would bet you that Danny Sullivan has probably not gone 3 days of his life without somebody asking him about the spin to win, right?
Right.
And I'm guessing that deep down he probably still is like, yeah, I don't really know exactly what happened there either. You know what I mean? Like he'll admit that it turned and he's like, oh my gosh, I'm in the right direction. And he went through the gearbox and gets it back in gear and boom, let's go, right?
It just happened and he was going the right direction, yeah.
So, Unser Jr., our guest, there's a lot to get to with you, and I know you guys got a busy schedule here, but I wanted to ask you about this as well. I'll tell you something funny. For the Grand Prix race over the weekend, my position for that, to call it on radio, is atop the Turn 2 suites, okay?
Okay.
And that was the initial broadcast position of your uncle, Bobby Unser, when he did television.
Mm-hmm.
So Steve Shunk, who I'm assuming that you know, but Steve Shunk, who's a mutual friend of ours, was telling me that the first year that Bobby Unser was doing the Turn 2 suites, Steve's working for ABC, and they come to him and they said, now listen, so Bobby Unser is going to be on top of the Turn 2 suites doing we 4 people can be up there, no more than 4 people, 5.
Right.
So Shunk is down on pit road race morning, and they come to him in a panic, and they said, my gosh, what in the heck is going on? Bobby Unser's got a catering crew up there. And he managed to talk like 18 people from Jugs Catering.
Sure.
And so they're having a party on top of the Turn 2 suites, right? I mean, such a personality.
Mm-hmm.
And then your dad, more of an understated guy, just an all
Dad
business
was quiet.
guy. Right,
Dad
quiet
was
guy.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, with how much this place means to you, is it hard for you to come here without those guys here?
Family, yes. It's hard to come to Indy because, I loved my Uncle Bobby. I loved my father. I miss him more out in everyday life. We miss them and because they're family. And so yeah, we miss them a lot. As far as here at Indy, they were legends. They were super successful, and I was fortunate enough and blessed enough to join them in Victory Circle and that sort of thing. And so, but yeah, we miss them all the time.
Growing up with those guys, and I know that the dynamic between your dad and your uncle, there's racing, there's competitiveness, there's sponsor competition, all of that,
super competitive.
Right?
Those two brothers.
I can't remember which one it was that told the story that one of them got a set of tires delivered to their house in Albuquerque that was supposed to go to the other, so they didn't tell the other, and then they went ahead and put the tires on the car, and then that leads
that is correct.
All kinds of stuff that, right?
And it was when Dad would get anything in the mail, okay, of anything. Parts, anything, okay? And he wasn't home because he lived right across the street from Uncle Bobby, West Central. And whenever he wasn't home and he received packages, they would just take it over to Uncle Bobby thinking they're going to,
Right.
And
it seems safe, right?
It seems safe, and drop them off. And Uncle Bobby, sure, yeah, we'll give it to him. And he'd go and stash it, hide it, and never give it up.
Right.
And so Dad would have to go over when he'd get back in town, and he'd have to go over and search Uncle Bobby's, because this was supposed to show up, and it hasn't, and it's been 3 or 4 days, so it's got to be over at my brother's.
And so, therefore, I would imagine, they're I don't know if their relationship was icy at times, but it's touch and go, right? Because you're competitors.
Oh, yeah, they're brothers.
So having said all of that, when you were a young buck coming up, which of the two of them, did they counsel you and teach you actively, or was it more, look, you've got to learn some of this on your own and a little more hands-off, and we're here if you need us? What was the dynamic in terms of you learning as a driver from the two of them?
Well, the dynamic was just simple. Dad taught me how to race from the time I was 9 years old to all the way up to through sprint cars, through everything, until I got to Indy cars. Okay, and so he taught me everything. If he saw something that I was doing, he'd come up and go, Al, I've noticed this. You need to do it this way. Is a better way, and so on. And up until I started racing against him. And the second I started racing it against him, that ended. But if I then had to ask the question. If I asked the question to my dad, I've noticed this why are you doing this or what have you at one of the racetracks, or he would tell me the truth. He'd be honest with me. But I had to ask the question.
Right.
He quit volunteering information, once I started racing.
Now, what about Bobby?
Uncle Bobby was always full of advice no matter what. And no matter
Even if you didn't ask for it, probably, right?
When, absolutely.
Yeah.
It could be on the snowmobile. It could be anywhere. Uncle Bobby, that was just his personality, I mean, when, and so it was great. I just took, basically 80% of what Uncle Bobby says, you got to just throw it out the window because
right.
he's listening to himself talk, okay, because he loved that. And 20% was good, okay? And so Dad, because he didn't talk a lot, it was just the opposite, So
I just told the story on the other day. I probably have told you this. I was in my early to mid-20s, huge race fan. I don't remember who I was talking to, and they said, yeah, Bobby Unser's got a listed phone number in the phone book because he likes talking to race fans. And I thought, there's no way this is true.
Yeah.
So I called information in Albuquerque, and I asked for Bobby Unser. They said, oh, yeah, here's his number. So I call him. Now, I'm a little embarrassed of this now, but so I call him. And he answers the phone.
Right.
And I said, hi, Bobby. My name is Jake Query, and I'm from Indianapolis, and I went to the race in 1981. It was the first race I ever went to, and I had a question for you. Well, I just love talking to race fans. And I think I asked one question, and I was on the phone for an hour and a half.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. That's Uncle Bobby.
It was the greatest, right? Literally. He just went on and on and on. Mm-hmm. A lot of that stuff that we're talking about was in a museum, basically the Unser Racing Museum in Albuquerque. That is no longer in Albuquerque, correct?
Right. That is correct. When my dad passed away, his wife decided that she didn't want to do that anymore, and so we found a museum in Lincoln, Nebraska called the Museum of American Speed. The Smith family, they also own Speedway Motors, and they now have gotten the Unser collection, is what they're calling it. And they've got it in their museum. And we just had a grand opening just a couple weeks ago at Lincoln, and it's just the collection, the memorabilia, the artwork, the trophies, the cars from Uncle Bobby, Dad, and myself are just enormous.
And does that include some of the Pikes Peak stuff and all
absolutely.
of it? Yeah.
Even Uncle Bobby's hunting doom buggy is there, okay? And so, it was Norma went with us when we did the grand opening, and on our way back, she looked at me and she goes, I'm just overwhelmed with how much you actually did in your life, because it's all out there, and I'm
sure it's probably surreal to look at some of it, right?
It is. There's a bunch of accomplishments of awards, trophies, and that sort of thing, and Norma was just going, I never thought it was that much.
It's interesting to wrap it all up here. So May 20th, by the way, Pit Lane Unfiltered. May 20th is when everything gets underway with you and Willy T Ribbs. And then people will be able to see and enjoy all of this and the completed product of it, where and how. Yeah,
that's in the process.
Okay.
We've got to what we're doing is we're doing a lot of filming once we get back here. And the 21st, 22nd, we're going to start putting a lot of it, as Willie says, in the can, okay? And it's our first show is going to be unfiltered at the 500.
And Willy T Ribbs, his son now, by the way, is a nationally,
Theo Ribbs is a world champion ski
rifle
shooter.
marksman, right? Yeah. That's right.
Yeah,
incredible.
Yeah,
and represents Team USA and the whole deal.
Oh yeah.
And Al,
great.
As you guys do this, and I know that you've been to Pacer games, right?
Yep. I enjoy the Pacers.
I know. Yep. I saw you on the video board, and they won that game. So we need to get you to the Eastern Conference Finals because you're good luck, right? We know that.
There you go.
But here's the thing. I'll leave you with this. It's disingenuous to say that you and I know each other well, but we obviously have crossed paths, annually at the very least, right? And have for many, many years.
Yep.
In me covering this sport. You mentioned that it's your job to kind of keep Willy T on task, right?
That's right.
Easy, Willy. Your wife, Norma,
I don't know how hard that's going to be extremely hard to do.
It's impossible. It's an impossible task.
I just hope it's possible.
It's like calling Uncle Bobby and expecting to get one question in 15 minutes, right? But your wife, Norma, I can see it from afar, it's just the perfect teammate partnership, right? Absolutely. I'm not saying that she's easy little Al, but I can tell that, I can see the radiance of the glow of the fact that you are a happy guy.
Yeah.
And it's great to see.
She's a huge part of that. And so, we love her to death. And she runs 200 miles an hour all day long. And so, which is great.
That's good. I like it.
It keeps me busy.
That's right. Well, hey, listen, I know that in that busy schedule you made time for us. It's always a pleasure. Certainly appreciate it. We look forward to everything. Getting underway May 20th, right?
You got it.
May 20th. All right. Unser Jr. joining me here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.